All right. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We've got a good crew here already, which is fantastic. And I'm sure we'll have some folks join in as, people wrap up earlier meetings and things like that. Just have a few general announcements that I wanted to share. First is that EnvoyCon is happening the day before KubeCon, CNCFCon, which is in Seattle in December. And because of course, Envoy is a big part of Istio, I wanted to call this out. There's a separate CFP for EnvoyCon, and it closes this Friday. And I put a link in the agenda doc, so please do check it out. It's got all the information about the event itself, and then it has, actually, I think that link got changed, so I'll correct that. It's got all the information there, and then it also has a link to the CFP. Highly recommend checking that out and submitting to EnvoyCon, especially if you had something that you had maybe proposed for the larger KubeCon that related to Envoy as well. The other thing I wanted to call out is this awesome sketch. I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, but Denise Yu from Pivotal did this amazing, like, what is Istio sketch. I've been waiting for us to have something, cute like this, someone with the designer skills. Kubernetes has like the children's illustrated guide to Kubernetes, which is a great kind of intro explanation. And I'm super excited that we're starting to get some design folks in the community that can create some cool stuff for us. So do check that out. I'm also chatting with her about getting some postcards made, getting it actually printed on something that people could like hand out. You could hang it in your cube or hand out at meetups and things like that. So I think it's a really cool kind of high level look at what Istio is, which is a question I'm sure we all get a lot, and now you can answer it a little bit easier. So do check that out and let Denise know your thoughts on that. Does anyone else have any announcements or anything else they want to share before we jump into questions? Any upcoming meetups or conferences that folks are speaking at?
Just during April, I saw the Shanghai Istio talks has been published.
Great. Is that something that, is it on a YouTube channel already, or?
No, there's a KubeCon CNCF Shanghai in China.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys already told that. I just joined.
Yeah, no, I haven't talked about the agenda for that yet.
Yeah, and for the KubeCon in Seattle, I think it's going to be at the end of the month, 29. They're going to finish reviews and they're going to publish the winners.
Yeah, I know. I have some. There's a lot of interesting stuff that has been proposed for Seattle, so it's really exciting to see what gets in.
Hey, April. Next month there is a API World Conference in San Jose. So there is a service mesh panel. I think some of the Googlers and IBMers are there, and the folks from the other companies as well. And there is also a talk by Louis and Dan onto the Istio.
Okay, cool. I'll make sure we have that on the agenda. I mean, on the calendar. Sorry, the community calendar. Anybody else have anything they want to call out? I did see some stuff on the Twitters with some meetups that folks have planned, so I'll be sure to add those to the community calendar as well. And if you've got stuff that you want to add to the community calendar, please let me know. Excuse me, and we'll get that in. I'm happy to give you privileges to add things yourself to calendar. Just please don't delete anything else. Actually trying to get a special permission set added for that. Christopher put a link in that there'll be an Istio Birds of a Feather session at the Cloud Foundry Summit EU in October. So that's awesome. A lot of good stuff coming up. I feel like we're hitting another wave of conferences. We had our earlier wave and then it died down, and now we're about to go in again, and we'll all be exhausted till December, and then we'll start over. All right. If no one's got anything else they want to share, we can jump into questions. Julian had a question. Some of it had started on the mailing list, but I encouraged him to, let's talk about it here. I think this is a good opportunity to kind of have this discussion. But what your development flow looks like, Julian, do you want to take it from here? We can't hear you guys.
Maybe you're in mute.
I was gonna say we hear something, but we don't hear words. Mm-mm.
Nope.
It's almost like it's a bad quality.
I think he's saying that you should go ahead and we'll circle back with him.
Yeah,
There
okay. I was gonna say, if nothing else, if folks have thoughts on that, do check out the discussion, and hopefully we can get the sound issues worked out later. So Vanille had a question from VMware. What sort of improvements are being planned in the mixer adapter space? Do you want to elaborate on that, anyone?
Yeah, sure. So I was trying to build a adapter out of tree. So it feels like the process is, kind of there, but it still needs a little improvement. Like I was trying to generate the config, like the proto files, and it was giving me some errors because there were some complications there. So that's why I had this question as to what sort of improvements are going to be there. Like, is there anything being planned in this area, or and how can we help? Yeah.
So just you're trying to build an adapter, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I would suggest, I don't know if Doug is on, I don't know if Dan Cerulli has any feedback here. Just looking through who all is joining us on the call. Dan is trying to answer, but you can't hear me. Nope. So Dan will have an answer for you, but I would also suggest the working groups. Let's see. I don't know if anyone else has been working on Mixer and has feedback or thoughts they can share. We're just a sound challenged group this morning. Vanille, have you engaged with any other working groups yet?
Not really. So
Okay.
I just started off recently, so I found this issue. But yeah, I think I'm going to speak to a few people on the Rocket Chat or something and get it resolved.
Yeah, so I would definitely suggest checking in with the policies and telemetry working group. And then Doug and Mandar are the two working group leads there, and they would definitely, want that feedback regarding your experience and how it's been and challenges you've run into, because I know that's something we want to improve. I see Dan Cerulli now, but I don't hear him yet.
Is that an out-of-process adapter?
Yeah, it is.
Great. So, hi, Dan Cerulli.
Hi.
Are you building an out-of-process adapter or an in-process adapter?
Yeah, it'll be an out-of-process adapter, and again, it's out of tree. So
yeah. So we were just talking about things to work on next, and one of them, we really wanted to get the out-of-process adapter model in for 1.0, and we did just in the nick of time. However, I think the way it was written on our to-do list yesterday was finish out of processor adapter. I think that's the way it was phrased. But yes, the team knows that there are issues there, and we do want to, as an immediate task, finish making this process A, easy, and B, well documented. So I think that everything that April was saying before I got my microphone was working is right. We can either do this on the email list or via GitHub issue, but make sure that that team is aware. They might already be aware of the issues you would be having, but make sure they're kind of cataloged so that we can finish it. And by 1/1, we would like this to be. We want it to be very easy for anyone to write an adapter. We want those adapters to be out of process, so it's easy for people to start using them. Right. The beauty of out of process adapters is you don't have to take down your system. Right. It should
Yeah.
be someone installs it and then they put some config in and it starts working. So one of the two, either email to Istio. April, you tell me, do you think Istio dev or Istio users for that? Istio dev for that.
Yeah, but I would also suggest the actual working group.
Going to the working group
forum as well.
is a great idea, actually. But yeah, let's make sure they're aware of the issues, because they do know there are some issues. I want to make sure that they know about all the issues from someone who's actually trying it. Can I ask you what kind of adapter you're writing, Vanil?
It's a metric adapter.
Okay,
So,
for what system?
Have you heard of Wavefront?
Yes.
Yeah, so it'll be an adapter for Wavefront.
Cool.
Yeah, so I just started an out of process adapter, but again, it's out of tree, so that complicates things a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll definitely create an issue on GitHub, and we'll take it from there. But this is awesome. Thanks for your inputs.
You're
And
welcome.
also-
I'm glad you're doing it. We understand that the only way to encourage this is by making it easy, and so we want to make it easy.
Yeah, let me know if you need help in improving any of the things in the adapters.
Awesome.
Please.
Yeah,
Thank you very
definitely
much.
jump in with the working group and help them get that feedback, and that's how we're going to improve the process. It's unfortunately someone has to have the pain, and it's you. But definitely share that feedback so we can make things better.
I'm sure
Yeah.
April didn't mean to laugh at your pain, but you're laughing at your own pain. That's good. That's good. Healthy.
It's development. We all know what happens.
Thanks.
I did put a link in the chat to all the working group info. So if anybody's interested in, jumping in with any of the working groups, the link is right there, and it has all the information for you. Let's see. Julian, do you want to try again?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. We have a Zoom set up in our rooms, but I clearly don't know how to use that one and only can use my computers. I apologize for that. Actually, before I talk about the question I had posted here, I had another one that was sparked by the last part. So I'm at Lightstep. Lightstep is root cause analysis platform, big in the distributed tracing space. And we are very early embarking on trying to do some contributions to Istio. And we're planning to do this in a iterative manner. And so the first thing that we're actually hoping to do, which is why I was trying to get my dev setup working, is that Lightstep is directly integrated with Envoy. There's like specific built-in Lightstep configuration options in Envoy. And so one of the things that we were hoping to be able to do is to expose the two configurations we need, so that someone using Istio could just specify those and then have the envoys actually directly communicate with essentially our product. And so that's kind of the first thing that we were hoping to do. And then, as you might know, we might not know, Lightstep is also a big proponent of open tracing. I know there's currently a effort to, I guess, integrate open census with Istio, which is awesome. And so the subsequent iteration of what we're trying to do is actually build an open tracing integration as well. So our work into our exploration to that topic is still early. But I guess now having Dan here is great. And I guess maybe it's something I could bring up, I guess, with the policy and telemetry working group as well. But I guess I'd be interested in understanding, is the adapter mechanism through Mixer the right approach to that? And I guess there's a lot that I don't know, so I don't even really know the exact questions to ask at the moment.
We can't hear you, Dan. You need to get in a certain position and just not move.
Technology is hard.
Testing. One.
There you go. There he is.
Yeah. So first of all, yes, that is the same working group, the policy and telemetry working group. In all likelihood, a mixer adapter is the right way to do this. They have thought about some other mechanisms, but mixer is the place to start. And if it's for some reason isn't, that would still be the right working group meeting. So that's definitely a place to go. And thank you for the background, but I know what Lightspeed is, and we would welcome you. So maybe this is just turning into a policy and telemetry working group with information. But the thing that's good about those working group sessions is the people there are where you can ask pretty detailed technical questions, because it is literally each working group is run by a maintainer on that area of the code base, and so they're the people who know this the best. And there's other people who are trying to do the same thing you're kind of do, right? And so you can kind of also get feedback from people who have maybe gone through it before. So yes, we welcome you to the community. I think that's awesome. And yeah, I'll have to pop in there. I want to see how these two things turn out.
Cool, perfect. And if I can, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to segue into the question I actually listed here, which is I just wanted to get an understanding of what people's development flow looks like. So I guess yesterday, or not yesterday, whatever, 2 days I was spending trying to just get everything up and running essentially from scratch to see if I could just build Istio locally, deploy it to Minikube, and just be on my way. And I ran into a couple of snags along the way, which I think I eventually worked out, but was interested in first asking just the general question of like, what do development processes look like for different people? How are you going about testing it and all this other type of stuff? Mostly because I found I was running on my machine as a Mac, and I was having some trouble with just some of the default commands that are listed in the dev guide. I ended up scouring the GitHub issues and found things that I needed to change. So I'm hoping to actually make those like updates to the dev guide. But just more generally, like, what does the flow look like for people?
Don't make me call names, y'all.
Oh, I could go. I just run it on.
Can you speak up a little bit? We can barely hear you, Osman.
Is that better? Hey,
A little bit better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm on the road. Yeah, I run it on GKE, and I just use the Helm chart to install it with a mutual TLS authentication, and it seems to be kind of the easiest way. I think on last call we were saying that there were some issues in terms of the configuration setup for Minikube. So when I'm working with Istio, I try and abstract away from the Kubernetes details. That way I just have the latest version of Kubernetes, and I kind of, if I'm working on the Istio, I abstract away from trying to resolve the Kubernetes items with let's say a local deployment. So that helps me just resolve some of those items, and then I focus on really getting the Istio things to work. And then the main thing for me is really recently has been getting the gateway items to work. So I think if you're trying to ingress things from an external service into Istio, having it in some kind of replica of your development environment seems to be the best approach for me, because then I don't have to take the local step and then the pre-development step. I can just be like, okay, this is what it's going to look like in my development environment. So then I'm just kind of actually trying to figure out all the configurations as close as possible to deployment.
Thanks, that's helpful.
Anyone else have anything? Christopher? Like I said, I'll call names. Laurent, Doug, Mandar.
I could say something else too. I think one of the things that I noticed was just basically when it's like setting the environment variables on each restart, because sometimes for my ingress ports, for example, I wasn't resetting the environment variables. So I use Cloud Shell on Google Cloud. So when I would go back into Cloud Shell and it was a new session, my environment variables would not be set. So I think small things like that, just making sure that's set and making sure like the Istio CDL is in your bash profile and stuff. So those things can lead to minor errors, which then you're wondering like, why is this not working? But then that's some stuff that I found is important, is maintaining the session variables between states. Because then if you set something up on Istio, like an ingress or something, without setting those variables, then they're missing. So yeah.
Do you know if any of that stuff is documented anywhere?
No, for me, it was just about the GKE has a Helm install process, and I think it's for 0.8, but it's.
Yeah, I ran through that.
Did you guys?
I haven't run through all of the steps that Julian was posting about, although I really appreciate that you posted all of those because I expect to be going through the same thing soon, and it's helpful to know what issues I might run into.
And I see on chat, Christopher said Christopher uses IBM IKS to test end to end. So it isn't surprising, but yeah, it seems that the best way to do that. Christopher says Minikube works for some small things, but drain the battery very quickly. I assume that this will probably be the best is if you have access to an ability to spin up a cluster on an IBM or Google, that's probably going to be the easiest way to do it. Would love to see other cloud providers, get good docs on how to do it there too, because we'd love to see this happening anywhere. But that probably is the easiest way to do this.
I recently transitioned from doing Minikube to Kubernetes and Docker on a Mac, and that runs a little bit more stably than Minikube, just because it's not abstracted through the VM. But I noticed that there were a couple documentation issues about getting that set up that just weren't covered, like what IP ranges for egress, if you wanted to whitelist external, so it only proxied internal connections, and I had to reduce the pilot memory allocation because it wanted all 2 gigs that Docker had by default. And I should probably file a documentation ticket, but I want to get some other developers going through my internal docs before I do that.
Is there a place where you can share them so that people can do that?
I don't have anything published yet, but I don't work on Istio myself. Or, well, I mean, I do at my company, but I'm not part of the Istio team. So I'm saying I should probably put my notes together.
By the way, our docs are just as open source as this.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that's the best place to jump in.
Yeah, not trying to pressure you, but you are welcome to. If you see something wrong that can be fixed, you're welcome to file a bug. You're also welcome to submit a PR. I've done that before.
Okay, then maybe I'll just do a PR instead of file a bug when I get it all documented nicely.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
I was going to say, if nothing else, I would suggest just creating like a shared doc in the community drive and throwing up what you've got there, and then that's an easy way for people to collaborate and make it pretty, and then it can lead to the full PR.
And if you need help with the language side, feel free to plug me in. I'm happy to help.
Hey, Riggs.
I was just going to say, and then Riggs can help as well.
Sure.
So if y'all haven't met yet, Riggs works on the documentation for Istio. So definitely connect with him. He can definitely help with some of those, like you said, wording issues, or help us identify the key areas. So.
Yeah, also make sure that the content flows nicely when it is read, so that the steps make sense and everything is nice and clear.
Yeah. Awesome. So Julian, I would say hopefully some of this was helpful. And then as we talk about the other questions you had and just the overall development process, we've got a link to that thread in the working doc. And I would say let's start adding to that discussion, and then that can also form a good framework for future doc enhancements as well. So.
It seems earlier that there was a question about adapters.
Y'all are like reading my mind. I was going to say, Vanille, hey, guess who's here? So for those that had questions about mixer adapters, I pinged Mandar and Doug and asked them if they could hop in. Vanil, do you want to? You were talking about improvements.
Yeah, he was talking about, I think specifically, Mandar. That sorry for interrupting, April.
That's okay.
We've been messaging Vanil and I about building out of the Istio tree, the source control tree, and having some difficulties with that. And it is an out of process adapter. So
Okay.
I don't know, Vanilla, if you want to go into details now, or you want to.
We could take it offline because it's kind of complicated.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think that's, well. First of all, it's awesome that you're using it, and sorry that you're having trouble. But yes, we would absolutely would like to know and help you, get that out, and then certainly improve documentation and process. So please do send an email on the on the dev group, or however you have been communicating with Dan here. But we would certainly want to help.
Yeah, I'll be posting my queries on the Google group for policy and telemetry. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely think keeping it in the working group list is probably better, because the main one is just getting so much traffic now. So that way you have a better chance of it not being lost.
Everyone, you all, sorry, this is MetaPoint, but you all are so helpful. I'm so excited to have a chance to work with you guys. This has been, it's got me excited.
Yay! That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. That's perfect.
Yeah, no, I really mean it. I'm very excited. So
good. Well, we're glad to have you here. We're very excited. And then I'm super excited that one of the things that I have been saying in conference talks, and there was the Twitch stream last week, was that I was waiting for that 1.0. And once we hit that, I knew we were going to get more folks in the community that would start building mixer adapters and, start just playing with Istio overall and doing blog posts and things like that. So it's really exciting now that we've hit that point to have more folks that are, jumping in and building stuff out. So really excited to hear your experiences with that and how we can overall, make it better for you.
By the way, one thing that we've been talking about is adding kind of community pages to the site for users of Istio, as well as for anybody who's done integrations, mixer adapters, or any sort of integration. And what we'd like to do is put up pages, and other open source projects do this, where there's logos, and we say, hey, if you're using it, and you want to tell the world that, we'd love it, and we'll offer you a little space on our page. So I don't know, we haven't worked out what the best way to allow that to happen is. We'll probably put up a page with some logos, accept PRs, but we'll probably also do a PR for somebody if they just send us the logo and their tagline. So if that's interesting to you, I don't know, maybe I'll start a thread on the Istio users group, and you can respond if you think you'd like to have your logo up there.
Awesome. Someone, I can't see who it is because it just has a combination of letters and numbers, but someone said the Istio Twitch was awesome. And it was awesome. If you got a chance to watch it live, hopefully you enjoyed it as well. It was recorded, so I actually have an action item for myself to connect up with Spencer from IBM, who led everything, and see if we can maybe break it into smaller chunks. And get it on our YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for that. And then...
so April, we are currently... I'm just going to say that on that point, one of our video guys currently editing that. So those individual videos should be available sometime tomorrow, or maybe the day after tomorrow.
Awesome, that's great.
Alesh, we can take this offline, but if they could edit it to make me look smarter than I am, that'd be great.
We'll probably have to use one of that Google machine learning algorithm in order to do that.
I doubt it's possible, Dan.
Yeah, that might be a Watson thing that's needed there, Nilesh. We love each other. It's hard to tell. So Steve also, excellent tie-in. Steve asked, are the OzCon Istio Day videos available? So, yes, but it's a little tricky to get them. They don't, they put them in their Safari online. They don't put them up on YouTube, but they give us the speakers the opportunity to download and put them on YouTube. So I'm trying to grab everyone's, and I want to upload them to the Istio YouTube and then do a blog post pointing out to everything. I've been waiting for the recordings to do kind of a Istio Day recap blog post. So if you didn't attend OzCon and you don't have access to the recordings, keep an eye out. I am going to gather them all. If you're on the call right now and you spoke at Istio Day, go ahead and send me a link to your talk, or tell me, yes, download and put it on the Istio YouTube, and we'll get it up there, and then we're going to link out to all of them, because that was a lot of great content, and so I'm glad those were all recorded. Looks like Osman has jumped off, if I'm correct.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm back. My phone
Okay,
didn't even overheated in the car, so.
Where? Okay.
Were you running YouTube on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For my issue, I was just saying that I had felt an issue regarding just how to use the Istio to connect to create a gRPC gateway, and I got some great help on the issue. And it was the resolution was, I kind of pointed it out there in the YAML section. It was just about going into the values section of the YAML and just creating that port, and then naming it HTTPS, which then creates that inside the default gateway, the default Istio Ingress gateway. So you don't even have to create the custom gateway. So it was good to have this resolved, and then I pointed out some of the other issues that are still kind of lingering or open there, but they're dealing with the same thing. So, and then one of them, 7909, that one suggests having also setting the node port. So I think it'd be interesting just maybe throw in a blog post something, or just have like a consolidated way to write up, this is how to just modify the basic Istio Ingress gateway to use gRPC. That way it can all be put together somehow.
Yes, please, because
Okay.
I know this is something that a lot of folks have had questions about and interest about, and I would love to get some documentation around that, whether it's blog post that leads to official docs or whatever. So I don't know if that's something that you want to do, Osman, or if you want to open it up for other folks to do, but happy to help, and maybe Riggs could help us as well. But I think that's an important thing we need to get some documentation on.
Sounds good. Yeah, what's the best way to get in touch with Rakes?
I will do, I was gonna say, I can do an email with the three of us, since I have.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Awesome.
Great, thanks.
Cool. Making a note for myself. And then Jerry had a question. Did I say that right, Jerry?
You did. Thank you.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask, I just went through the tutorial that's on your documentation page, and I deployed Istio to GKE using the Helm template. And I have it automatically deploying the sidecars. So I deployed the Bookbinder app, and I'm noticing that the sidecar image that's being used is Istio Proxy v2. And I assume that comes from the Istio Proxy GitHub repository. And I'm wondering how that's related to the Envoy proxy, if they're related at all, if that's a separate thing, and if it is a separate thing, how I would go about testing it out with Istio using Envoy as the sidecar.
Oh, so the sidecar that is deployed is our build of Envoy.
It's, yeah, the image name is Istio/proxy v2.
Right, and your question was you want to deploy an alternate Envoy?
I guess I was just wondering how that was related to Envoy. If
okay. Yeah. So as part of our build process, we add a few filters which are Istio specific to Envoy, and then we create a build of Envoy, and then we package it as Istio/proxy v2. That's the name. So it is Envoy with some extra filters that is already running. Now, if you have a need to use a specific build of Envoy, that can be done. It will be a little bit involved. Essentially, what it would mean is you would have to have your Envoy, add our filters, then package it up again, and use that image. In terms of actually using an alternate image, that's somewhat easy, right? So for example, we publish multiple images. There is a proxy v2, proxy v2 debug. You may want to use a later or earlier image. And all that is handled through the sidecar injection. So you can either change the sidecar injection config map to specify the other image that you want, or there is also an annotation that you can put on your deployment and specify if you want a different image. But at the heart of it, Istio proxy v2 is an Envoy.
Okay, that's helpful. Do you have any specific guidance for where to look in that proxy repository to figure out how that build process is happening, how it's pulling in the Envoy?
Yes, so you can just go into the Istio. It's a Bazel build. So are you? So yeah. So if you're not, you'll have to get familiar with Bazel a little bit.
Yep.
Some people have said it's non-trivial to get familiarized, but yeah. So just go into the Istio proxy repository, and there is a top level make file even, and then eventually there is a Bazel build.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I think Vanille just linked to it.
yeah, that actually gets the, so Bazel build is set up in such a way that the actual Envoy itself is a dependency of that build. And then the code inside Istio proxy are the additional filters that we add. And you can look at more details at the kind of starting with the workspace and the build file there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. This will certainly give me some reading to do.
Yeah, there were several links posted in the chat, and Jerry, I will share the transcript of the chat later, so don't panic if you didn't, get a chance to click on all of them.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Mandar, for jumping in. That's helpful. And Doug and Vanille as well. Yes, Dan.
Mike asked about scalability guides, and Mike, we are right now working on some publishing performance numbers that include expected kind of scalability guidelines, how many requests per second an ingress should be able to handle. I don't think those are quite ready for publishing, but we're working on them as we speak.
That's great news. Thank you.
Wait, did you just answer someone else's? Oh, you did. You totally.
I have a couple comments. Actually, to Jerry's point, one of my kind of errors early on was trying to also use Envoy inside Istio, and then I found out that there was kind of some like memory collision that was occurring as a result of that. And then I just realized that you kind of probably don't want to use Envoy in there because I put some issue on it a while ago that it has some kind of root permissions thing that happens if they're both running when I was trying to run them inside each other. So.
Oh, Osman, you mean use a separate Envoy deployment inside in your pod?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So I was like, well, probably shouldn't do this. Yeah, I switched back, and then I just started routing. I looked more towards virtual services and understanding those more and how to use that to do everything.
Okay, one of the links that I just posted into the chat, and we'll get this in the documents as well, was a really good description of the networking concepts. Sebastian Dashner, it looks like is the guy's name. Good blog post and a video that accompany it. Riggs, actually, who's on this call, is also working on a kind of conceptual docs, improvements. But I think that the new networking APIs are complicated, but some good docs to explain the concepts rather than just reference docs on individual types will help. So I hope that'll be coming pretty soon. And in the meantime, that guy wrote a really good explanation.
Or just in terms of the scalability guide, I just posted something in the chat there. So in general, when people are deploying with Helm, should we be resetting those values? So to kind of specify those to our containers relative to what you're talking about with the stats and the reference points coming up? did everyone
Right.
catch?
Yeah,
You
yeah, I
did. I
got it.
think you stumped everybody.
No, I'm going to defer this.
I guess the answer is kind of like because when you're deploying it, there are some very minor limitations there. Like if you look at here's another line, for example, just if you're doing just a basic deployment and you just run the Helm install, you are creating some container request limitations there. So I was just looking through, and it's kind of something to maybe go through and look at if you'd like to customize it, because throughout the docs there are resource limitations that are tied into the YAML files.
So in terms of, so you're asking for guidance in adjusting those values, yes?
I guess yeah, or just should technically, if one's doing a release deployment, one should adjust those values, right? Relative to what one's potential like scaling, etc. would be.
Yes, absolutely. So the default values that we set in kind of several different cases are usually too low for any serious production or any performance testing type deployment. Typically, when we use for performance testing, we allocate. So just as an example, we allocate several entire CPUs to pilot. So 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 7, and then let that scale. Similarly, we would at least allocate 100 milli CPUs per sidecar proxy, and then let it grow from there. So some of this stuff is actually covered in the performance wiki or the performance section of our docs, and then there are several values files that are available that document how we do performance testing. So those can also be used as a guideline. And then we are coming out with more specific numbers on several different axes. So if you have 1,000 sidecars in your deployment, how many pilots would you need to hit all the propagation performance metrics? So we are actually coming out with those numbers, and that would give you kind of more precise way to tailor those numbers per your deployment.
Okay, sounds great. So just look up for now, look up the performance section of the documentation.
Yes.
Okay, that would be really useful with what you're talking about in terms of just getting the metrics. That sounds really great.
Awesome. Thanks, Mandar, for jumping in there. I saw one other question in the chat. Georgie, are there any guidelines available for running the control plane components in HA?
Yeah, so I was wondering whether there's like some published guidelines around running the whole thing in, with some high availability guarantees. Obviously performance is one thing, and the resources that we allocate. But do we need to kind of, customize the Istio deployment specifically for making sure that all of the control plane components are highly available? And I guess another question in the back of my mind is which of the components are, the most critical? Which components can we essentially lose in production without impacting the service-to-service communication within the cluster?
Right. So I can take that. In terms of scalability, there are 4 Istio components, so to speak. Right. There is the sidecar proxy, and then in control plane there is pilot, mixer, and Citadel. All of them have different types of penalties when kind of in terms of what happens when they go down. So for example, if pilot goes down for a brief period, nothing actually happens. Everything continues to work because Envoys will continue to use the configuration that they have, and they will serve traffic. However, if Pilot goes down, then no new sidecars will be able to come up, which means that you cannot bring any new resources online until Pilot is restored. Which means that just a normal horizontal pod autoscaler and having min replicas is sufficient to keep Pilot up and overall availability up. The other component is Mixer. So if you're using policies and you're using a kind of a reject on failure policy, and if Mixer goes down, then you can actually have outage. In that case as well, just a normal horizontal pod autoscaler works just fine because Mixer is a stateless component. We haven't done a whole lot of work on what happens in a multi-cluster environment and kind of what you do there. Though, because these components are stateless, it would make sense to run these components in every cluster, and then kind of similar things would follow.
Let me elaborate a little bit on that. If you are, because Mandar said this, but I want to make sure it's explicit. He said if you're using Mixer for policy, and if you have it in essentially a fail closed configuration, then Mixer going down would result in requests getting rejected. But those are two kind of big ifs. Some people use Mixer purely for telemetry collection, and they're not having Mixer enforce policy, in which case Mixer going down would mean that telemetry isn't getting reported. You might lose, some period of time in your, say, your logs or in your telemetry. However, those requests would be served. And the second is, even if you are using policy, and policy could be an integration with a backend policy engine or something like Quota, those can be configured in either fail open or fail closed fashion. And depending on your policy, you might choose to have them. Here at Google, we have, depending on the backend policy system, we decide what do we want to do if the quota system is down. And for example, if a quota system is down, we typically fail open and allow those requests to come in. Authorization is one where you might want that to fail closed. So Mixer can impact requests if you're using it for policy and if it's configured for that policy to be fail closed.
Okay, yeah, that's very useful information. Thank you. So I guess another question is like, is the auto scaling setup already configured in the Helm based installation of Istio?
Yes, it is. So
okay.
we already put horizontal pod autoscalers, and
okay. And what about the other components, like?
But they're already there.
Okay, cool.
Kind of cut out.
Yeah, I lost some of the audio.
But yes, horizontal pod auto scaling is set up.
And so how about the other components like Citadel, ingress gateway, egress gateway, and the sidecar injector?
Right. So sidecar injector going down would also similarly prevent new things from coming up, which means that again a normal just a min replicas setting on the deployment is fine. If it goes down, it will bring one back up, and that shouldn't matter in terms of ingress gateways and egress gateways. They can also be handed over to a deployment, which they are just by default. That's how we deploy them. And again, a simple min replicas plus a horizontal pod autoscaler there also works just fine, because even those components are stateless. They should just respond to load, and a few of them should always be available. And Citadel is, so if Citadel is not available, then you are again going to have this kind of bootstrapping issue. So new things cannot come up, existing things continue to work. That's
that, just to be clear, there are two things. First, Citadel only affects you if you're using MTLS. However, there's one caveat there. If Citadel's gone for a long time, certificates will expire. And so I think typically, I think our default configuration certificates have a life of 1 hour and get rotated. So if your Citadel is down for a length of time, say it's down for 30 minutes or 60, within 30 minutes, half of your certificates would expire, and those pods which we're running would not be able to obtain new certificates. So if you're using MTLS and you have a short Citadel outage, you probably won't be affected. If you have a longer Citadel outage, you could be affected.
Cool, thank you. That's really useful.
Yeah, thanks, Mandar.
Nice to see you, by the way, Georgie.
Nice to see you too.
So we got we got a few more questions in the chat. We only have about 8 minutes left in the call, so I want to try to get through them as much as we can. Amy had a question about, is there a manual or recommended steps for adding a new microservice into an Istio-enabled service mesh? Anyone?
I think that if you are not using MTLS, adding a new service is easy. And by easy, I mean, if you're using proxy auto injection, then when someone deploys into that cluster, Kubernetes will make sure that the proxy gets installed as a sidecar, and B, the service gets registered so that other people can call, other services on the mesh can call it. So in that case, that's I'll say trivial. If you are using MTLS, then I would encourage you to look at what we call incremental MTLS. Incremental MTLS allows you to put a service into permissive mode so that it can accept calls either via MTLS or without MTLS. And that will allow you to have that new service come in, and even if it doesn't have a sidecar that would allow it to communicate via MTLS, it would allow it to send traffic to another service. But again, if you're not using MTLS, you can probably just safely allow auto injection on the cluster. And I hope that answers your question, Amy.
Yeah, I think I was looking for something in the line of like a checklist, right? There are a lot of questions on Rocket Chat regarding, oh, my virtual service is not working. I can't reach my gateway. So it would be kind of nice to see a checklist of how to, like Istio 101. I mean, with the risk of like me volunteering to write, you just said the docs are open source, but yeah. So I think it will be very useful to have that kind of documentation to do a checklist so that people can go back and troubleshoot their settings. Yeah, I understand with the sidecar enabled, yeah, you can just do it automatically. That's why automatic sidecar works. But yeah, yeah. So. Yeah, that really helped. Thanks.
A checklist is a really good idea, and
yeah,
saying it should be there doesn't necessarily mean volunteering, but it means anyone else can too.
Right. Just wanted to put it out there.
That's a great idea. Riggs, by the way, it's fantastic that Riggs, who's a Googler who spends a bunch of his time working on Istio, working on documentation, is here because he hears every one of these and
yeah, I'm taking notes.
All right, thank you.
I don't know if I'll be able to get to it very soon. I'm kind of swamped, but yeah, I'm taking notes, and we'll reach out to you, Amy, for more info.
Sure. I will. I can volunteer sometime as well. We can work on it together. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you. Trying to get through these next two questions in the next 4 minutes. Mandar, if you're still on, the next question is about retry rules. I know you're not a networking person per se, but I can't answer it. It's from Fernand, who would like to test retry rules. It just scrolled out.
Yeah, we'll let someone else kind of come back to that.
Yeah, so Fernand, sorry, we don't have anyone from the networking group on today. They would definitely be the best. If you wouldn't mind sending that to Istio users, I can make sure someone answers it. The next question about the sidecar injector stopping when the laptop goes into sleep mode. I have no idea.
Never let your laptop sleep.
I think that, most of us, as we were talking about earlier, test setups around here, most of us are not using laptops for test setups. People are using clusters in the cloud.
I wonder if there's anything on the Envoy.
You know what would be, it's like, I think what would be good, actually, and this is not going to happen quickly, is a page on local debugging, and just kind of recommend, like, here's how you set it up, here's things to watch out for. I don't think that will happen anytime soon, Hector, but I can see from several of the questions on this that is something that a lot of people are doing, and great thing for the community to chip in on. And Amy, I don't know if you saw in the chat, but Osman had a suggestion to look at the tasks section of the docs with a step-by-step process.
Yeah, those are really helpful. I think the information is just kind of scattered throughout different topics. So you just have to spend the time to go through them and look for what's applicable to your situation, right? It is there. I'm not saying it's missing, but for folks who
and agreed that hey, is this a checklist? You said checklist. You also said troubleshooting, and both those things, like, hey, can I make sure that this deployment worked? And then part two, if it's not working, how do I diagnose it? Yeah. Good question.
And the info might be there, but if you have a specific case where you found issues, maybe we can work together to make sure that we have a checklist with links to the information that we already have. Okay.
Yeah, I found some issues with like the latest Helm chart, like part of the Helm option default value for ingress is disabled, I think, because it's deprecated. However, the ingress I forgot the term, is not, it's actually referring to the 0.8, whereas it is deprecated, so part of it is trying to support 0.8, but it's actually not, so I found it kind of confusing. Someone corrected me on Rocket Chat, but I found some issues. I'll just bring it up to you guys on a issue. I don't want to take up too much time. I know we were running out of time, so.
That's all right. I think we got a chance to at least tell people what, if we don't have the answer, where to go get it. We are at time. I know that there are some comments about people submitted stuff to EnvoyCon, which is awesome. Please do submit more things. Again, it closes tomorrow. And if we weren't able to get to your questions or anything today, please do join us on the next call, and then also join the working groups, and then feel free to send an email to the mailing list as well, and we can help you there. And just reach out with anything else you need between now and then. Otherwise, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Thanks all. Bye.
Yeah, thanks for joining, everybody. Thanks, April.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.